On December 6, 2006, 13-year-old girl Ta'ir Rada was murdered in the bathroom of her high school at the end of an ordinary school day. The search for the killer in the north of Israel captured the entire nation as accusations ranged from the gardener at her school to her classmates and finally to Roman Zadorov, who was convicted of slashing Rada's throat. 10 years have gone by, and despite 3 convictions, questions about the case remain. Some of those questions were put forward in the most poignant way in Shadow of the Truth, a documentary series by 3 Israeli filmmakers. I'm joined by 2 of them now in studio, Ari Pines and Yotam Gendelman. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me today.
Good afternoon.
Well, the first thing I want to ask you is about the show's title. On Channel 8, it was labeled Shadow of the Truth, Who Killed Ta'ir Rada? And despite my expectations, which I think psychologically I was conditioned to think this, there was no answer to the question. It seemed that the point was to raise the question once again.
It is. And there is no, there's no answer about regarding it anyway.
Yeah, it was Channel 8's edition, this title of Who Killed Ta'ir Rada, and we didn't want to answer this question, but rather to raise doubts about the conviction of Roman Zadorov, and also raise other interesting stories that were not told about this murder.
Yeah, anyway, the mystery is, of course, who killed Ta'ir Rada, but I think the actual answer, it's not that we know or have any idea who killed her, but there's lots of questions about who might have done it and who didn't do it anyway.
And it remains really an open wound, I would say, in Israeli collective memory, the story of this gruesome murder. Is this what attracted you to it? Were you curious by it, regardless of the show?
Yeah, it's interesting. You have to. It's important to understand that, you know, Israel is not a stranger to murders or tragedies, and yet this story really captivated the entire nation. And even now, even before the series, people are still talking about this murder that happened 10 years ago. And yeah, like people have a tendency when they start looking into this thing to really get sucked into it. And I think this is also what happened to us.
And I think even more, there's people have tendency, to say and to be sure about who murdered it. And it doesn't even matter. Maybe they read an article or 2, maybe even more, maybe even stuck into it. But again, people believe they have like a definite answer. And we don't, even after like 3 or 4 years of really getting into it. And I think what attracted us is why people have the tendency to have to answer themselves a definite answer when there isn't none.
It really seemed like the people you interviewed and talked to, and everyone talking about the series online, are sure that they have the answer to this question.
Which is funny, because again, if you really, dig into it, nobody has. And you have to understand that in the court, it's not like the judges are looking for the definite truth. They're looking to the judgmental truth, or as we say it in Israel, I'm not sure what the English way to say it, but anyway, it's like truth beyond reasonable doubt, which of course we don't think it's the case here. But anyway, the fact that people are so sure that there's one truth and they know who did it, where again there's no DNA evidence, there's no actual evidence that connects anyone to the site, which is really it's a big thing.
Yeah, the most important thing is there is no forensic evidence that ties Roman Zadorov to the scene, and there is even forensic evidence that points to another person being in the crime scene, and he was convicted. He was convicted because of his confession, but the confession is a story, and you either believe a story or you don't. And this is, I think, the most important thing that we wanted to convey in the series, that once you have a legal system that can convict someone based only on his confession, this legal system will be prone to mistakes.
So who failed here in his conviction? Is it the police? Is it the court? Who would you say?
No, again, we can't say for sure that somebody's failed. We might even discover one day that Zadorov is guilty. We have no idea if it will be. And we think there's more than reasonable doubt. And again, the reason we think about it is because the confession for us is not as strong as it may be for somebody else. And again, because it's stories, and you might believe the story he tells, and you might not believe. Let's say the prosecution took this guy, and they said, okay, everything he says is probably a lie, but when he confesses, it must be the truth. But what if you turn the coin, What if like the confession is the lie and everything else is him telling the truth?
His confession doesn't. It's like it's full of details, but these details don't really match the murder scene when you look into them. But
and those who does, it's like, you know, they're like the ordinary details that you might find. It was like he was actually detained a week after the murder, so lots of the details you might knew. I mean,
From
in
the
this
media.
week, and anyway, he did know some stuff which are curious. How come he knew them? But again, is it enough? It's a big question.
Well, a lot of people were captivated by the stories told in the series. Tremendous success, 1 million downloads on video on demand service in Israel. Everyone is talking about it. It gave me nightmares the first time I saw it. I saw it again last night in preparation for our interview. And then something very predictable happened, like when every time something is hugely successful, a wave of criticism suddenly follows, and you were, of course, most famously called a danger to democracy by Shai Nitzan, that's the state attorney. Why is he worried about you?
Again, we have no idea,
No,
basically.
I think-
How come he's worried?
I think that the prosecution, it's very hard for the prosecution and the legal system to acknowledge the possibility that it has made a mistake. And instead of looking into, looking at themselves and maybe listening to what the public says and saying, maybe we need to check ourselves to see if maybe a mistake was done. Instead of doing this, they like, you know, stand there or on their like back feet and start.
And I think even more, it's not like they're not even. I mean, they can't accept the criticism, but even more than that, I think they're like telling themselves they can't really. I mean, listen to the public. It's a thing they can't do. I mean, and which is true. Judges can't really, I mean, listen to the public all the time. They shouldn't do it. But if people raise questions, it's weird how come the prosecution itself can't even, I mean, raise those questions again, even if they're true. And it's like, it's a done deal and that is it.
And finally, I want to talk to you about the public. The public has continued to be fascinated by the story over time. Do you believe at some point we will know the truth about Ta'ir Rada's murder?
It's a big question. By the way, there's like another, I mean, maybe you can call it a suspect. There's also in the series. But again, even if she, let's say, theoretically will confess, could we believe her? It's not sure. Even if they like, maybe if they find, I mean, real DNA evidence or any other forensic evidence that could, I mean, connect it to like another suspect, we will get to the truth. But what happens when a girl is actually murdered in a bathroom, which was locked from inside? There's no evidence, I mean, that ties anyone else. Nobody can know who did it. There's no...
You can't know anything for sure.
So no truth, just versions of the truth is all we can hope for?
Yeah.
In that case, probably. Although there are some forensic evidence that lies there. Nowadays, they don't connect to nobody because they didn't, I mean, search to connect it to nobody. Maybe one day they will be connected. If they do, we probably would know.
I wish I had more time with both of you. There's so much more I want to ask you, but Ari Pinas and Yehuda Gendelman, thank you very much for joining me today.